frozen products to over 30,000 locations in the US and Canada, including supermarket chains, e commerce providers, and independent retailers. UNFI is the latest food industry company to face a data breach. In March, Sam's Club, owned by Walmart, announced it was investigating a ransomware breach linked to the clout ransomware game. JBS Foods, the world's largest beef producer, also paid an $11 million ransom in 2021.
What's up, team? Welcome back to our lab. It's your biggest fan, the real Casadero. And I brought up the ship to transmission depth to broadcast our pirate signal across the internet because I came across this story from one of our trusted agents out on the internet. Major grocery store distributor restores system after cyber attack. I'm not exactly sure what the cyber attack is, but if you own a business, you should have an incident response plan. These cybersecurity attacks that are hitting these big businesses, they're usually ransomware attacks where somebody has gotten some software into your network. That software is downloaded to different systems and it reports back to some central server somewhere and says, hey, I'm installed. And then that central server, the central server doesn't send a command. You can set it up like that, but there's different methodologies for this. But essentially, that server, if it's able to hit whatever it's aiming for, then it goes ahead and it executes its command, and that command could be encrypt this entire disk. And then it does this across all the systems in the company. And what happens is when the company comes to do any kind of business, they can't access anything. The cybersecurity criminals, not the cybersecurity criminals, but the cyber criminals, they'll then reach out to the grocery chain. Maybe it's a message inside of the code or something like that that says, hey, if you pay this ransom, then we'll give you the password to restore your systems. The problem with this is that after you give them the password to restore your systems, they still have access to the system because you got to go in and delete whatever it was that's installed. So what every company should be doing is they should be backing up all of their systems on a regular basis. Now, this is going to add additional costs and things like that. So you need an expert, someone in the business that's focused completely on that. How do you back up these systems on a regular basis so they aren't susceptible to these kinds of ransomware and other attacks, while also keeping costs low? Now, this might not be essential for smaller businesses. There's different cybersecurity concerns that affect small businesses. And when I say small, I'm not using the Small Business Administration definition of a small business. I'm using just think in your community, like all the business in your community like that. These businesses, they'll be using services that are connected to bigger systems and services, but they may not have budgets to handle like a full cybersecurity team to come in, or they probably don't have a budget for a cybersecurity staff to make sure their systems are secure like that. So for those of you out there that are interested in cybersecurity, that might be a business opportunity for you. And you don't need to go out and get a bunch of certifications and things. You just need to study the workings of small businesses, what kinds of payment processors they use, computer systems, things like that. Now, a lot of these companies, they may be using Stripe or something of that nature, and you won't be able to help them there as far as creating any custom sort of things or processes. But you could help, you could help them set up processes in case, for instance, Stripe goes down. What's their backup plan? What's their tertiary plan so they can continue to service their customers? And then you're going to have businesses that actually store information. For instance, car dealerships, they may have a bunch of information or processes or systems that they use to process sales, to process maintenance, things like that. Now, they may have some sort of cybersecurity response or incident team through their headquarters, but in my experience, and this was a long time ago, that wasn't the case. These companies also don't employ dedicated IT staff or cybersecurity people. At least from my experience, what we had a guy come in and he would work on the computers and things like that. If there was ever an incident, he would come in and do that. So he probably had some sort of standing contract. I'm not sure if it was a retainer type of basis where he's paid a monthly fee, whether he has to do anything or not. But there was a guy, it was the same guy every time he knew the server room, he would come in and fix all the stuff. This is, I believe, and to say I believe is to say that I don't know. So I won't say that. I'll say this. I know that a good cybersecurity incident response is the difference between being down an hour, a few hours, a day, a week, a month, or even longer. And typically, these problems can be rectified with proper security protocols in the beginning, but then also as a secondary measure, incident response plan. And I've talked enough in this one, team. Thanks for hanging out with me here. I'm your biggest fan, the real Casadero, and I will see you in the next broadcast, team. Peace.